In many fields, important decisions must be made before there is enough evidence to justify confidence. Large language models sit squarely within this category, influential enough to demand attention, yet uncertain enough to resist clear verdicts. The more pressing question may not be whether LLMs are hype, but how people should reason and act when the answer itself remains unsettled. This video examines what disciplined decision-making looks like under that kind of uncertainty. In the finance industry, professionals often deal with uncertainty. When starting a new project, a good decision-maker considers different possible outcomes and assigns estimated probabilities to each. For example, a new product might be a huge success, increasing profits by 50%. It might be a moderate success, increasing profits by 8%, or it might fail entirely, resulting in a loss of 10% if development costs aren't recovered. Suppose the estimated probabilities are 20% for huge success, 50% for moderate success, and 30% for failure. Using expected value reasoning, the average outcome is an 11% profit increase with a relatively mild worst-case loss of 10%. Given the positive average return and manageable level of risk, a rational decision-maker would conclude that the project is worth pursuing. This approach simplifies decision-making. Instead of wrestling with the thought of what should I do, one can simply ask, what do I know? Once the best estimates of probabilities and outcomes are documented, the decision is largely just a calculation away. If the numbers are incorrect, the decision can still be incorrect. Therefore, it is important to regularly revise estimates as new information appears. However, the reduced decision-making burden and the presence of a mental framework that can easily be adjusted with new information can make working with difficult problems significantly less mentally taxing. Outside of finance, this way of thinking is equally useful. Viewing uncertainty through probabilities doesn't eliminate risk, but it leads to clearer choices. Individual outcomes viewed in isolation will sometimes disappoint, but that is inevitable, and it doesn't take away from the point that decisions made consistently on expected value produce better long-term results. If we apply that same logic to AI, the question becomes, what are the plausible outcomes for an employee, and how costly is it to prepare or not prepare for each one? If AI is merely overhyped, work continues largely as normal, and the cost of preparing is modest, only a little time wasted. But there's also a non-trivial chance that AI is not overhyped or even still underestimated, in which case there's a very significant risk of getting left behind. Given the asymmetry, a rational employee would allocate at least some effort towards preparation. People often resist accepting the potential importance of AI out of fear that if AI isn't overhyped, AGI will take all jobs, making the future bleak to the point where an employee might as well just give up. While the answer is complex, the most likely answer is that this doesn't have to be the case. While artificial general intelligence remains speculative, we can already observe how current AI systems are reshaping the labor market. Employment in AI-affected industries such as software, finance, and marketing continues to grow. Software-related roles, for example, are projected to expand roughly 18% over the next decade. At the same time, organizations are increasingly favoring experienced professionals, with junior hiring in technology declining sharply by around 50%. This decline has multiple causes and not AI alone, but the signal is clear. Roles are changing more than they are disappearing. In fact, for many employees, AI represents a significant opportunity. Organizations are discovering that effective AI systems provide a real competitive advantage, while poorly implemented systems produce little more than what some now call AI slop. The practical knowledge, judgment, and context that is needed to avoid creating AI slop, which professionals develop over time, remains highly valuable. The pattern is simple. AI creates opportunity, poor implementations don't work, and people are needed to bridge the gap. Employees who combine domain expertise with the ability to design, evaluate, and integrate AI systems are increasingly valuable. As their contributions grow, so does their ability to negotiate a higher salary. What makes the current moment unusual is that the barrier to gaining this edge is relatively low. Often, differentiation requires years of education or specialized training. However, in this context, a regular employee with genuine domain knowledge can build a meaningful advantage by staying current through online resources and, critically, by building small experimental projects within their field. Think of it this way: there are moments in history when the playing field temporarily levels, when new tools emerge before they are monopolized by those with experience and resources. AI may be one of those moments. The barrier to entry is not elite credentials or large budgets, but curiosity and initiative. Particularly in narrow but valuable domains, individual contributors working evenings and weekends can now build systems that meaningfully compete with those produced by larger teams. Finally, regardless of what happens in the AI industry, it is important that employees remember good fundamentals. It's easy to become distracted by the big questions about industry trends and technological shifts. However, sometimes the most impactful decisions are the subtle ones, such as spending less than you earn, investing the difference, avoiding high-interest debt, and building an emergency fund. These principles sound almost boring in their simplicity, yet they compound over time in ways that are anything but boring. A person who earns a modest salary but invests consistently can end up in a far better position than someone who earns twice as much but spends it all. The irony is that people often spend enormous mental energy worrying about societal level changes that may increase or decrease their income by 10 or 20%, while completely neglecting financial habits that could improve their long-term outcome by 100% or more. The broader landscape matters, certainly, but it matters far less if the fundamentals are neglected. To make this concrete, we'll demonstrate a system that mirrors the same probability-based reasoning discussed earlier. We'll create an agent with access to a financial planning tool. The agent can propose decisions such as taking out a loan or investing surplus income, and the tool returns expected cash flows over time, taking into account the probability of different stock market returns. On a technical level, the agent architecture that is demonstrated where an LLM coordinates access to deterministic tools represents a pragmatic approach to building reliable AI systems. Rather than asking the LLM to perform financial calculations, we leverage its strengths in natural language understanding and reasoning while delegating specific tasks to specialized tools. This hybrid approach, combining the flexibility of LLMs with the reliability of traditional software, might well define the next generation of useful AI applications. The financial planning tool also demonstrates something important. LLMs are not just about automation or replacing human judgment. They excel at making complex information accessible, at translating abstract concepts into concrete scenarios that people can understand and act upon. Whether applied to financial planning, data analysis, or domain-specific problem-solving, LLM-based systems are most powerful when they augment human decision-making rather than attempt to replace it entirely. This is where the real opportunities lie, not in creating systems that eliminate the need for expertise, but in creating systems that make expertise more accessible and actionable. So, are LLMs hype? Perhaps the more useful question is whether an answer is even necessary. When facing uncertainty, the goal is not to predict the future perfectly, but to position oneself so that multiple possible futures work in one's favor. By applying probability-based decision-making, employees can move beyond paralysis and take measured strategic action. The AI landscape will evolve in unexpected ways. Some applications will disappoint, others will exceed expectations. But those who invest time in understanding and experimenting with these systems are likely to be better positioned regardless of how the future unfolds.